Hey guys, welcome back to more Karen stories. In this video, a Karen insisted that my driveway is public property and allowed countless wedding guests to park on my land. I gave no permission to anyone. Here is what happened. Let's dive right into the video. And the first one is a legal advice story from Massachusetts, and it's titled, "Entitled Woman Claims My Private Driveway is Public Parking for a Wedding Venue, Directing Guests to Park on My Property." So I own a 12-acre property in rural Massachusetts that has been in my family for generations. The house sits about 400 feet back from the road with a long private driveway leading up to it. I've got private property no trespassing signs clearly posted at the entrance and along the driveway. About 6 months ago, someone bought the old Thompson farm next door and converted it into a wedding venue. Generally, it hasn't been too bad, occasional noise on weekends, but nothing unbearable. They got their own parking lot that typically seems adequate. Yesterday, I was working in my home office when I noticed cars starting to pull into my driveway. I went outside and found a woman directing traffic onto my property. Our conversation went something like this. Me, "Excuse me, this is private property. You cannot park here." Woman, "Oh, don't be difficult. The venue's lot is full and this is clearly an unused driveway. We are just borrowing it for a few hours." Me, "This is not a public driveway. It's my private property and those cars need to leave." Woman, "Listen, this is my daughter's wedding day. You cannot seriously expect these guests to walk half a mile from the public lots in town. Don't be so selfish. You have all this empty space." I pointed out my no trespassing signs and explained again that this was private property. She actually laughed at me and said, "Those signs are just suggestions. You cannot stop people from parking on a driveway." Well, at this point, about 15 cars were already parked along my driveway, blocking my access to my own house. When I started taking photos and warning people that they would be towed, she threatened to call the cops on me for harassment. I then called the non-emergency police line and said that they would send someone out, but it might take a while since it is just a civil matter. Meanwhile, more cars keep arriving, and this woman, who I learned is the mom of the bride, is still directing traffic onto my property despite my explicit objections. I have documented everything with photos and videos, including her directing cars onto my property after being told repeatedly that it is actually private property. I also have clear no trespassing signs posted. What are my options here? Can I have these cars towed? I'm actually worried about liability if something happens on my property, and I don't want this to set a precedent for future events. By the way, edit, while waiting for responses, more cars are arriving. We are up to about 25 vehicles now. The woman is telling guests that I'm just being difficult and to ignore me. And yeah guys, I'm curious, what would you have done in this situation? Would you have just let the guests park on your property and not been so-called difficult, or would you have stood up for your rights? I'm really curious how you would have handled this situation and what would you suggest OP to do? I would definitely say that OP is not the a-hole here for not wanting random people to park on his property. I mean, maybe if Karen would have asked nicely, but the way she handled this, it is very clear that this is a super entitled idiot. Either way, comment number 1, not a lawyer but property owner, call a tow company immediately. You are absolutely within your rights to have unauthorized vehicles towed from your private property, especially since you have clear signage posted. Comment number 2, actual lawyer here. You are well within your rights to have these vehicles towed at owner's expense. Just make sure that your no trespassing signs meet state requirements. They must be posted at all usual points of entry. Also call a towing company and the police. You want law enforcement there to keep the peace when the towing starts, as people tend to get aggressive when their vehicles are being towed. Comment number 3, they are creating huge liability issues for you. If someone gets hurt on your property during this unauthorized parking situation, you could be held liable. Get those cars off your property ASAP. Comment number 4, dude, just let them park there. It's just for a few hours and you're not using the driveway anyway. Why make a big deal out of it? Update, thanks for all the advice on my previous post. A lot has happened and not all of it good. So I followed the suggestions to document everything and call a towing company, but things have escalated significantly. After getting your comments, I immediately called 3 local towing companies. The first 2 were too busy, but the third agreed to send multiple trucks. I also called the police again and specifically requested an officer present due to potential confrontation. While waiting, I went to the wedding venue and spoke to the manager. Me, your wedding party is illegally parking on my private property. I need you to make an announcement immediately. The manager said, "Oh dear, I specifically told them that our lot was the only approved parking area. I will handle this right away." She did make an announcement, but by then, the mother of the bride, let's call her Karen, yeah, I know it's cliche but it fits, had told everyone to ignore it because he cannot legally tow all these cars. The police arrived just before the towing company, thankfully, because things got ugly real fast. Karen completely lost it when she saw the tow trucks pulling in and said, "You cannot do this. This is a public road. I will sue you for everything you have." "Officer, ma'am, this is a private driveway. The owner has every right to have unauthorized vehicles removed." Karen said, "But it's my daughter's wedding. He is ruining everything. We will sue you for emotional distress." The officer kept things under control while the towing company started removing vehicles. Some guests were understanding once they realized that they had been misled about the property being public, but others, well, not so much. Karen was screaming that I was heartless and destroying her daughter's special day, but here's where it gets complicated. The venue manager is now claiming they are not responsible because Karen went against their explicit parking instructions. Karen is threatening to sue both me and the venue, and she has also posted all over social media about how I maliciously ruined a wedding, complete with my name and address. Now I'm getting harassing messages from strangers. Total damages so far: my grass is torn up from cars parking on the lawn, there are deep ruts in my gravel driveway, and someone, guess who, threw what looks like a wedding cake at my garage. My mailbox was also knocked over this morning. The venue has offered to pay for the property damage to maintain good neighbor relations, but Karen is still threatening legal action. She's claiming that because the venue's parking lot was full, they had an obligation to provide overflow parking, and therefore my driveway became a public easement. Yes, she actually said that. I have security cameras up now, but I'm worried about escalation even further. Karen knows where I live, and she seems unhinged enough to do something stupid. Questions: given the social media posts and harassment, do I have grounds for a restraining order? Number 2, should I proactively file a police report about the property damage? Number 3, should I accept the venue's offer to pay for damages, or could that somehow be used against me? Comment number 1, lawyer here, save everything, every social media post, every message, every piece of documentation. You need a paper trail. File a police report immediately about the property damage. Also, accept the venue's offer but get it in writing and make it clear that this doesn't waive any rights regarding other claims. Comment number 3, not a lawyer but dealt with similar harassment. File for a restraining order immediately. Her posting your personal info online with clear intent to cause harassment is grounds for legal action in most states. Comment number 4, the public easement thing is complete nonsense. That's not how easements work. Document everything and consider filing a civil suit for the harassment and property damage. Comment number 5, security camera recommendation, get ones that upload to the cloud. If she's crazy enough to post your personal info online, she might be crazy enough to try damaging the cameras too. And now we got another update to the story that goes like this. So first, thank you everyone for the advice. Following your suggestions quite literally saved me thousands of dollars and helped me handle this situation properly. So here is how everything played out. Taking your advice, I immediately filed a police report about the property damage and installed cloud-connected security cameras. Good thing I did, because the very next night my cameras caught Karen and 2 other people attempting to put up signs at the end of my driveway that said "Wedding Venue Parking." I had the footage sent directly to the police. The social media harassment was getting out of hand too, so I contacted a lawyer recommended by someone in the comments. She was fantastic and immediately sent a cease and desist letter to both Karen and the venue. She also helped me file for a restraining order based on the harassment and the camera footage of Karen's midnight signposting adventure. The restraining order hearing was, well, let's just say it was interesting. Karen showed up with what looked like a lawyer she found on a billboard. She tried to argue that she was just trying to help solve a parking problem, and that my actions were malicious. Then my lawyer played the security footage. The judge said, "Ma'am, are you telling me that after having multiple vehicles towed for trespassing, you returned to this property at night to put up unauthorized signs?" Karen, "I was just trying to prevent future confusion." Judge, "By trespassing again?" The judge granted the restraining order finally and actually lectured Karen about harassment and property rights, but here's where it gets really good. Remember how the venue offered to pay for damages? Well, during discussions with their insurance company, it came out that Karen had been offered their standard shuttle service from the town parking lot, but she refused because it was apparently beneath her daughter's dignity. The venue had emails proving this, and their insurance company decided to sue Karen for the damages they had to pay me, since she explicitly went against their parking policies and caused the whole situation to begin with. They also cancelled the venue's insurance policy over this incident, which led the venue to ban Karen from their property too. But the real karma? Those social media posts came back to bite her. Her daughter's new in-laws are apparently pretty wealthy and image conscious. When they saw Karen being labeled as a wedding venue vandal in the local paper, yes, this made the local news, they were horrified. I heard through the grapevine that they've distanced themselves from her completely. The final tally: Karen had to pay for all the towing charges, around $3,800. The venue's insurance paid $12,000 for property damage repairs. Karen was ordered to pay my legal fees, $5,400, and she is now banned from both my property and the venue. She also had to write a public retraction of her social media posts. I have since installed a serious gate at the entrance to my driveway with cameras, and the venue has started including my property boundaries in their contract, specifically stating that directing parking onto my land will result in immediate event cancellation. The wedding venue actually turned out to be decent people. They have hired a parking management company and now run regular shuttles from the town lot. They even sent me a really nice gift basket with an apology letter. As for Karen though, last I heard she's trying to sell her house and move to Florida. Apparently being known as the wedding venue vandal in a small town is not great for your social life. Thanks again for all the advice. Special shout out to the person who recommended cloud cameras. They literally made my case. And if you can't get enough of these crazy wedding stories, then we will have another one here. It is titled "Comply with Bridezilla or Leave." Okay. And by the way, if you enjoy these legal advice stories, then please don't forget to let me know in the comments and post some star emojis to show your support. So my friend Gemma tells me about how she and an entire group of bridesmaids left a wedding after their friend dared them to. So this all happened a few weeks ago. A longtime friend of Gemma's group was getting married in another state, but the day of the wedding she suddenly had a problem with one girl who wore glasses, which she did not have an issue with beforehand. The glasses girl told her that she would not wear them during the vows and pictures, but the bridezilla did not want her wearing them at all and was screaming at her to not put them on for the rest of the day. Obviously she couldn't do that since she needs to see. The argument got more heated until bridezilla gave her the ultimatum to take them off and keep them off or leave. This is when Gemma and the other bridesmaids stepped in, told bridezilla that she was out of line and that they would all leave if she forced the girl with glasses to leave. Bridezilla called their bluff and, being maids of honor, the bridesmaids left the wedding and decided to celebrate and eat at a restaurant before they headed back home. Bridezilla called them several times after they left, telling them that she did not care about the glasses anymore and begged them to come back to the venue, but they not only refused but also chose to end the friendship with her altogether. Gemma said that the wedding proceeded as follows, just minus the bridesmaids and a few awkward stares because everyone heard the bridezilla screaming from earlier. Gemma told me that the bridezilla has always been like this, throwing a tantrum when she doesn't get her way, and that the meltdown at the wedding was just the last straw for them. Personally, I think she's got a monk's patience if she put up with her for that long. And the next one is another story from r/malicious compliance. It is titled "Friend pranks my parents on their wedding day and my grandpa takes care of that." So my grandpa was a quiet guy. He loved his family more than anything and he was very observant. So the wedding reception was in full swing, everyone is drinking and dancing and having a great time. One of my dad's friends drunkenly decided to play a prank. He gets two more of dad's buddies to help. Grandpa notices them sneaking out and watches. Now mom had a kick-ass car. It was a blue Camaro with a Landau top and was either a 69, 70 or 71. My mom doesn't remember. And this friend of dad's also had a Camaro of the same year. Anyway though, the trio go out to mom's car, pop the hood and take apart. I think it was a spark plugs, but whatever they took, it meant the car would not start, leaving my parents kind of stranded. My grandpa saw this and then waited until the drunk guys went back in and then took the same part from the drunk guy's car and put it in mom's. He then took the drunk guy's tools and flashlight and hid them in a coat closet, and soon it is really dark, so the newlyweds leave for their hotel hotel room. Drunk guy and his friends are even drunker and discover that their car won't start. They pop the hood and see the missing part and then start looking for the tools and flashlight. Grandpa walks over and says, "Your tools and lights are in the coat closet. I hope your car is comfy because the building won't be unlocked until morning." Of course, Grandpa tells Grandma, they laugh, and Grandma tells Mom and Dad, "My grandpa was simply the best." And now let's move on to the next story. It starts like this. So I have a beach near me that I like to go to very often. All of the regulars know about this crazy lady called Karen that thinks that she owns the beach every single time that she happened to show up. I don't know where she got this idea, the beach was hers and how important it made to her, but none of it was true. As a matter of fact, it was a public beach and she was just entitled and self-important. Now, her walking around claiming to own the beach on its own was not more than just annoying. The problem was that she felt that meant she could do whatever she wanted and bother people. The first and only other time before my experience with her that the police came involved her and a lifeguard. In this particular case, the lifeguard went on his break, so the signs were up saying that no lifeguard was on duty and to stay out of the water. Technically, you could still go in the water and the sign was more of a do-at-your-own-risk type of thing. And by the way, Ripe Stars, I have to apologize, my voice is still a little bit bad because I'm still kind of sick, but I hope it's okay for you. Anyway, while he was gone, she took down the sign and sat up in his chair saying that she was a lifeguard and as the owner of the beach wanted people to enjoy the water. This became an issue when some kids ran into the water and got pulled underneath. People were screaming for the lifeguard to help, but she was just sitting there and watching the entire scene unfold. From what I understand, people came to get her to save the kid only for her to say that she didn't know how to swim. The police were called so we could get some actual trained people on the scene to help. Luckily, the lifeguard not on duty found out about the chaos and came running in to save the kid from drowning. Karen was arrested at that point for, I think, impersonating a lifeguard. Again, I was not there for this story, it was just something I heard, so not all the details might be there or accurate. So either way, what I do know is it didn't keep Karen away because she was still walking around the beach claiming that she owned it. Now, something about me was that I spent a year losing a good amount of weight because I was having some pretty bad health-related issues due to being obese. One summer came, I went out and got the first bikini I owned in years. I was so happy to feel confident enough again to wear one and just proud of what I accomplished. And well, about 5 minutes after taking off my cover, Karen came storming over to me. She looked pissed off and I knew that it was not gonna be good. "Karen, what do you think you're doing? Exposing yourself on my beach with children around." Me, I'm not exposing myself. I'm wearing a bathing suit like almost everybody else here. "Karen, you're wearing a skimpy bikini. This is a family place and nobody should have to turn around and see you being dirty." Me, there are plenty of other women wearing bikinis. Karen, yes, but that's because I say it's okay for them to do it. You are far too fat to be wearing one. It looks disgusting and showing far too much skin. Either cover up or leave my beach right now. Me, look, we both know that you don't actually own this beach. People humor you to avoid a major blow up, but they all know it too. Everything that needs to be covered on my body is covered and I'm not leaving. She proceeded to pull out her phone and call 911 emergency services. She was talking about how there was a fat naked lady running around on her beach scaring everybody. Going so far as to call me dangerous and needing help right away. She looked smug and at this point I was feeling very dejected. I knew that I still had a full body and even some loose skin hanging around. The more she talked, the worse I felt and the more I wanted to just wear baggy clothing and never put on a bikini again. I was just too stubborn to let her win in that moment though, and I stood around awkwardly until the police came. This caused all eyes to turn on me and Karen and I was feeling super self-conscious about how I looked now. She pointed me out and said that I was the one that she called them about. "Police, you're saying she was naked and then after you called the police, she put on a bathing suit?" Karen, "No, she's been walking around like this since she got here. And she also refuses to cover up and put on a proper bathing suit. She's exposing kids and I refuse to allow anybody that fat to wear something so revealing." During this whole ordeal, another officer came, and I guess he was one that came from the past incident. Officer, this is not the first time we've had to come down to this beach because of you. We have also gone over that this is a public beach and you were meant to leave people alone. Karen, but she's breaking the law. Officer, no, she's not. The law requires anybody on a public beach as this one to be wearing a bathing suit that covers their private parts and their breasts. She is exposing none of that, and we were forced to come down here on a lie told by you. He went through records and I was able to hear that she had called them 5 times already for false reports and they were done with her abusing services. She was being arrested again, and this time I felt like they were gonna make sure that she was just done. The officer went to get the megaphone from the lifeguard to make a public announcement regarding Karen. Officer, can I have everybody's attention please? This woman has been claiming that she owns the beach. I want you all to be aware that this is a public beach, and if this woman has harassed you or taken money from you, please report it. It was extremely embarrassing for Karen to just be called out in front of everybody. It was better than anything that I could have done, and you could see her face turning red, not from a sunburn. I did not get to find out details if she went to prison or got some other kind of punishment. I don't know if these things can be found publicly. Maybe somebody reading this can give me an answer. What I do know was that Karen ended up getting banned from not only that beach, but every single public park in the county. I also got this information secondhand, so I'm not 100% sure if it's true, but it seemed to be valid since I have not seen Karen at the beach ever since this incident. As for me, I'm still trying to feel okay with my body in my bikini, but I just want to keep wearing it and trying until I get to that point. Aside from Karen, nobody has said anything mean to me, which has been a huge help. I even had a couple of people saying that I looked nice. And the next one is an insanely entitled parent's story. I, 33 female, gonna preface this by saying that my 6-year-old daughter's father, who is 37 male, I'm gonna call him Jeff, has never been my romantic partner. We had a one-night stand. I don't like people calling him my ex since it makes it seem that we had some kind of emotional attachment. However, he was never involved after I told him that I was pregnant, and actually wanted me to terminate the pregnancy, but I decided to raise my child alone since I have enough money to raise her without child support. For the whole pregnancy and the first 4 years, Jeff was not in the picture. On my mother's recommendation, I did send him pictures and invited him to special events, but he always replied that he had no interest in my daughter. 2 years ago, he reappeared and began demanding parental rights. When I did not do what he wanted, he sued and was told no, he was not getting parental rights. He was given the offer to pay child support and then we can revisit giving him actual rights, but he has refused. He has the money, much more than me, but he refuses. I still offered to let him see my daughter in a casual manner, no child support needed, with the agreement anything legal, medical or educational will not involve him. He pushed the boundaries and we had a fallout. After that, we didn't hear from him for almost 6 weeks before he called to meet for Christmas. After much discussion, I agreed to bring my daughter over on the condition that my daughter's godparents could come. Thus, we went over for Christmas dinner and finding out Jeff is married and had never told his family that he had a child in the first place. It was great to be judged by a bunch of strangers. It was uncomfortable the whole time, so I'm gonna use fake names, but let's just say my daughter's name is Katie. His wife kept calling my daughter Gabriel, not the actual name she used, but it was that different to my daughter's name. The wife was also very physical, trying to pick up my daughter or even parent her. I would block her or tell her to please let me deal with my child. The whole time she pretty much ignored me, but Katie did not seem nervous, so I decided to just bid my time. I hit my limit when my daughter said she needed the bathroom, and this stranger went, "Oh Gabby, you need potty? Let mommy change you." Keep in mind, my daughter has not worn diapers in a while now, and she is more than capable of going alone to the bathroom. I immediately told her to stay away from my daughter and that we were leaving. The woman started wailing that I was kidnapping her baby girl and then tried to lunge at me. Her in-laws got in the middle and held her, consoling her and saying that we were not leaving and for her to calm down like she was the victim. At that point, I just glared at Jeff and told him he better explain or I'd be calling the police. He asked me to speak in private in another room and that I could just leave my daughter with his parents. However, no way that would ever happen. Katie's godparents took her with them despite the wife having a full-on meltdown. Jeff and I spoke outside and he explained that he and his wife recently lost a daughter. I'm not gonna give specific details on that, all I will say is that it was sudden and nobody's fault. And as I can only imagine, it had caused some psychological issues to his wife. Apparently, he then had the brilliant idea that having Katie pass as their lost child would help his wife without even telling me. And that is why he wanted visitations and parental rights. He pleaded for me to leave my daughter with him for a little bit. I asked him what his plan was when his wife heals, and his response was disgusting. Well, I will just send Katie back with you and it will just be like before. I told him he was insane if he thought I would let him use my daughter like that. What his wife needs is therapy with a professional, not feeding her delusions. And I would not let that woman within miles from my daughter. He told me I was being cruel and did not know the pain of losing a child. I agreed with him, but reminded Jeff that my priority is not his family, it is just my child. What he and his family do to work through their grief has nothing to do with us. I also told him to call his lawyer because I'm making sure he never has contact with my child again. So that's what I'm bracing for. He's been blasting my phone since Christmas, but I can easily ignore him. My daughter and I are doing a small travel vacation. This is not an update, just something I feel needs to be said. My daughter is set for life monetarily, she has a trust and I make really good money in my position. If she was 18 right now, I could put her through college without a loan. She does not even need child support for quality of life. If I could get child support and never worry about her father trying something, I would be suing him in a heartbeat. But after talking to a lawyer and realizing the risk, I've taken the decision that child support or possible inheritance is not worth my child's safety. Safety is always first. And the next one is an Am I the A-hole story. I, 33 male, have been with my wife, 33 female, for 6 years and married for 3. We have a 4-year-old son together, and I also have a 9-year-old daughter that I have sole custody of from a previous relationship. It was barely a relationship, honestly. Recently, my sister-in-law invited us to a restaurant for her birthday, and she told my wife to bring the family, which I took to mean my wife, me, our son, and my daughter. My in-laws have known my daughter since I've been with my wife, they've watched her grow up and I just assumed she was part of the family now. My wife went to my sister-in-law's house and the plan was for me to go meet them at the restaurant with the kids a little later on. Everything was fine at the meal, but once we got home and the kids were asleep, my wife got really annoyed at me for bringing my daughter. She said I was wrong for bringing her because she is not family and that my sister-in-law did not want her there. I've honestly never gotten the impression that my daughter was not welcome at family events on my wife's side, and no one told me not to bring her so far. A couple in-laws have been messaging me and calling me things for bringing my daughter. My mother-in-law told me that I was trying to force them to accept my daughter as family. And yeah, Ripe Stars, honestly, even if OP was trying to force them to accept his daughter as family, wouldn't that be the normal thing to do? That seems like such a toxic family relationship. I feel so bad for OP and his daughter. Anyway, let me know what you think in the comments. Is OP the a-hole or not? Comment number 1 said, absolutely not the a-hole. While the attitude of your sister and mother-in-law is disturbing, it's your wife's attitude that is outrageous. She should be calling out her family's disgusting behavior, not joining in on it. I feel sorry for your daughter and I feel for you, OP. You have some difficult decisions to make here. Comment number 2, not the a-hole. You and your daughter are family by marriage. If your daughter does not count as family, neither do you. I would make that very clear. Don't leave your little girl unsupervised with these people, including your wife. Not even if you are in the same house, they can be counted on to say unkind things. I don't understand how a parent taking reasonable care to protect their child could ever be in a marriage with someone who feels like this about his child or why they would stay. And now we got an update to the story. NOP says, I spoke to both my wife and daughter separately. And my daughter says that she does sometimes feel like my wife excludes her slightly or treats her different from her brother. She did also mention how sometimes my in-laws are not nice to her and make comments about her not fitting in and just general comments that made her feel unwelcome. She told me she was scared to tell me in case I would be angry at her. I have apologized to her for not realizing how my in-laws were treating her and for making her scared to talk to me. My wife pretty much confirmed what my daughter said. I'm so disgusted and annoyed at her. I don't understand how anyone could treat a child this way. She's the sweetest little girl. She has never done anything to deserve this. I just don't understand how they can be so disgusting and cruel. We are now planning on getting a divorce and my wife is planning on moving out after Christmas. The divorce will hopefully be easy since we've agreed on split custody for my son. Once she moves out, she will have my son every weekend, but that will probably change once she gets her own house. I'm very grateful that she's being so nice about all of this. There's not been many arguments about the divorce, which is very helpful. And yeah, Ripe stars props to OP for taking this step. I think it's for the better, and I hope that OP and his daughter will be happy in the future. And the next one is titled Douchebag Neighbor. This might be long, but worth the read, I think. Spec home built with a $12 million budget and a 6-month schedule. Next door neighbor immediately qualifies as a complete dickhead. Knows everybody, including the principals of the company I work for. At the very beginning of the work, he asks for a row of redwood trees to be planted as screening between the properties. Principals grant his request as a good neighbor gesture, $31K. Every step of the project, he either stands out at the end of the driveway taking pictures or he's flying his drone over the lot. He starts asking questions about whether or not work in progress is covered under the permit. He confides that he has obtained a copy of the permit and a set of plans. One day, he asks us for a meeting to discuss the redwood trees. Yes, those trees. He comes over at the appointed time and introduces his wife's landscape architect. Famous guy apparently, and he tries pulling some muscle moves by trying to convince us that the redwood trees are stealing their water. They also don't fit his vision for the project they are considering, which will be a total side and backyard makeover with walkways, stone walls, fountains, etc. He wants mature oak trees instead. Cut down and remove the redwoods at our expense and plant new oak trees also at our expense because, you know, screening. We decline, which sends famous architect guy and the wife into a rage. They decide to move forward with their project anyway, and the major earth moving, concrete forming, irrigation, etc. are all getting placed. Mr. Drone Guy continues to make efforts to get the oak trees swapped in under threats that maybe some of the work we are doing is not covered under the permit. Seems he also acted as the GC for his own remodel, so he must really know what he's talking about. He sends emails, registered letters from his lawyer, all in an effort to get us to swap out the trees. Finally, we are within sight of completing our project, and from the second floor, we can see that they have really transformed their whole yard into little parklets with mature plantings and walkways and all the other stuff. It's impressive, to be honest. So I called the town for a courtesy inspection prior to final, and the next day the inspector, an old friend whose father is also an old friend, stops by to tour the property for any red flags. I save the best for last, and we make it upstairs and make it to the best possible viewing point of the neighbor's magnificent landscape project, and my inspector friend casually but loudly says, "What the hell is that? I've never seen a permit come through for all that." And he bounds downstairs and heads back to the office, I'm guessing, to pull files. Here comes the best part though. Through abutting property searches that we always perform as due diligence, we discovered that the neighbor's side yard in its entirety is an 80-foot wide utility easement for the single largest underground water aqueduct for the entire region. It cannot be built on. We kept mum. Now, because there's also a seasonal creek that crosses said easement, Fish and Game are notified of the work in progress. In addition, we now have the State Water Resources Board along with the major water utility company inspections and enforcement departments making inquiries along with the town building department. No permit application was ever submitted for any of the work Mr. Drone Guy had done. Oof. Our property sold, and during some modifications for the new owner, we watched with subdued glee as every stick and stone was removed from the offending area and was to be left in a natural state for eternity. Major fines were also levied. Or levied, I always forget how to pronounce that. Either way, OP really seems like a person you do not want to mess with. And now let's move on to the next story. It starts like this. I was not really sure if I should really share this to Reddit since it's a sort of traumatic experience for me. Anyway, here we go. So I need an electric wheelchair to get around. I was born this way, so I've had a lot of time to get used to it. It's not really a big deal for me anymore. My parents are not together anymore, so I live with my dad, but my mom still comes to see me and spends time with me. Today was one of those days when we decided to go grocery shopping for my dad. He's been really busy lately and we wanted to help him out. My mom and I planned to pick up all the things he needed from the store. We started off by making a list of groceries. Mom let me decide what snacks I wanted and I was happy to choose my favorites. She always makes shopping fun. We wrote down things like bread, milk, fruits and my favorite cookies. Mom said we should get some vegetables too to make sure Dad eats healthy. Our city is not tiny, but it's not super huge either. It is just right for us, even though it's not as crowded as some other places. It's still a good size though. I've been coming to this Walmart for many years now, and I've become a familiar face around here. People know me as the disabled boy. Sure, I'm more than just my disability, but I get it. My wheelchair is kind of a distinct thing that sticks in people's minds. It's like a part of me that everyone remembers, and that's okay. People here are nice and they always say hello or give me a friendly nod when they see me. I was on a mission to find some double-stuffed Oreos when I accidentally nudged my elbows into a stack of chips. No big deal though, my wheelchair is low and I'm pretty bendy, so I can easily pick things up and put them back. As I was fixing the chips, I heard a whistle from behind me. I did not pay it much mind at first. I knew none of my usual folks would whistle like that, so I figured it was just someone passing by. But then, out of nowhere, something hit the back of my head. It hurt bad, and for a second my vision went black because the pain just shot through my entire head. I rubbed at the sore spot as I heard some laughing, probably from the bullies behind him. Something rolled near my foot and I saw a can of green beans. No wonder it felt like my head was splitting open. I turned around to see two people, a man and a woman. I couldn't tell how old they were, but they were not teenagers for sure. They looked kind of rough and their eyes were all bloodshot. I could not quite put my finger on it, but something about them seemed off. I wasn't sure what to do, they didn't seem friendly and I didn't want any trouble. I decided to ignore them and started moving away. As I moved, I heard them muttering something, but I couldn't make out the words. I just wanted to get out of there and finish up our grocery shopping. I went into the next aisle, and when nothing happened for the next few minutes, I thought they had left me. But then I suddenly got pushed against the shelves. I cried as my body collided, but before I could even understand what was happening, the strange woman was suddenly all up in my face. The woman, "Where's the damn beer aisle?" Her accent was strange and her breath so putrid I had to resist closing my nose. She was also eyeing me up and down, which made me extremely uncomfortable. Me? I don't know. I also suddenly sent an SOS using my phone, hoping my mom would be here soon. However, it had been a while since I got separated from her and I was so scared that she would not be able to find me. The man, the one who had pushed my wheelchair, tried to grab for my hand, but I held it close to my chest. He muttered something that I couldn't catch. The man then said, "You better take us to the beer or we will have you fired. Do what you're getting paid for, you little crap." Me? I'm sorry, but I don't work here. I don't know where the beer even is. I was trying my best not to stutter because I know this would only anger them even more. I also tried to reverse my wheelchair slowly. I was starting to feel suffocated with them standing so close to me, not to mention that I was probably 2 seconds away from having a panic attack. Sure, I've had some bad encounters because some people just cannot let others live peacefully, especially when someone is disabled and a perfect vulnerable target. But the most I've had to endure was insulting words and cold rejections by teenagers like me, not adults who did not even seem sober. Again, I had barely reversed my wheelchair when the woman grabbed at my wrist, almost pulling me out of my wheelchair. The woman, "Brats don't know how to effing work these days, making crappy excuses and getting money from their daddy. Ken, put this boy in his place." For a second I heard static in my brain and everything started almost blurring for me. It might sound dramatic to you all, but I was so sure I was gonna either die or be beaten until I was screaming in pain. Thankfully though, before I could spiral more into a panic attack, I heard someone shouting from behind me, and just as the man, Ken, held my throat with the intention of choking me, he was immediately yanked back. However, he didn't let go of my throat, so I would have ended up on the floor with him if another employee had not caught me in time. Everything was so chaotic after that and it happened so fast that I did not even understand most of it. I just know that my mom immediately took a hold of my wheelchair and pulled me away from the couple. The strange woman tried to yank at my legs, but my mom threw a bag of chips at her face. The two employees tried to hold the man down, and when security arrived a few minutes later, they took a hold of the man and the woman who kept screaming and cursing. My mom was checking if I was okay and I nodded, still very much shaken. The employees were talking to the security, giving them all the details. I could see the couple being led away and the security guard was talking into his radio, probably calling the police. People were looking at me as my mom rolled me out of the Walmart and I felt like throwing up, but I somehow held it in. I don't know why, maybe I was already feeling so embarrassed and didn't want to make a show of myself again. I was also apparently so shocked that I don't even remember when my mom pulled me into the car and drove away. I only came back to my senses when my dad helped me get out and my mom urged me to drink some water. I barely drank before gulps before I softly told my dad that I wanted to vomit. He helped me to the pot and helped me as I dry heaved. Halfway through I started to cry and told my dad that the man hit me in the head with a can and then pushed me into the shelf. They inspected my head for any cuts before my mom pressed something cold against it. After I was done heaving and ate enough to have some painkillers, they helped me into the bed and sat nearby in my room. I could hear my mom whispering to my dad, probably telling him about everything that happened. But I suddenly felt so exhausted that I just fell asleep. The next day, after a quiet breakfast, but thankfully a normal lunch where I was able to talk without feeling like crying, my dad gently told me that the police had gotten involved in what happened at Walmart. He told me that they were gonna press charges but wanted to hear my word as well. I still shook from everything that happened, but I agreed. My dad promised me that the two would definitely end up in jail because they are repeat offenders and I would never have to worry about them again. I don't know how long they will be in jail, but I really don't want to go back to Walmart again after this. And before we end the video, I will read one last funny story from r/PattyRevenge. It is titled, "Tow Truck Company Threatened to Dump My Car in a Ditch Over a $36 Payment." So, due to some recent snow, my car slid off my driveway and got stuck in a ditch next to my house. I contacted Insurance Roadside Assistance and they picked a random local tow truck company to winch my car out. I carefully checked with insurance before the rescue to verify that it was not an emergency, and I verified that it was completely covered by insurance. My insurance then sent me a written verification that it was covered. The tow truck driver arrived, got my car unstuck. After he was complete, I asked if he needed anything, and he said he needed to check on payments. I told him that I had written statements showing it's supposed to be covered by insurance. He then got back in his truck and drove away, so I assumed everything was good. But of course, nope, nothing is as easy as that. About 15 minutes later, I get a call from the tow company owner demanding that I pay $36 or they were not gonna release my car. I was confused because my car was parked in my driveway and the driver was long gone, so I said my insurance says it's covered, so please send an invoice and I can send it to them. The owner started screaming at me that that's not how this works and that I must pay the remainder or we are not leaving. I was like, well, the driver is gone. He said, "He's not supposed to do that. He will come back and block your driveway until you pay $36. You cheapskates make me sick. He will come back and put your car back in the ditch." At this point, I was kind of stunned and laughed at her and said, "Sure, just come back and put my car in the ditch," which made her so mad she hung up. A little bit later, I got a text with an invoice showing that I owed an additional $125 for a waiting fee. I texted her back asking where the driver was waiting because my property was empty, and she claimed that GPS and the dash cam proved that he was in my driveway. I responded with, "Well, he must be invisible because no one is here," and she stopped responding. My insurance eventually agreed to pay the $36 balance. And by the way, I've never had a small business owner behave this way to me. I sent in bad reviews to all the sites I could find and did a complaint to the BBB. And yeah guys, thank you so much for watching. I will see you again tomorrow.